The current second longest serving district judge in North Dakota is calling it a career. Judge Douglas Mattson celebrated his retirement today. He was first elected as district judge in 2002 and voters re-elected him to the bench 3 times, serving a total of 23 years. Before that, he served in the North Dakota House of Representatives from 1978 to 1982. He was also a state prosecutor for 12 years. Now, nearing his 70s, Mattson says a lot has changed throughout his career, like the need for more judges and the growing technology in the courtroom. Mattson spoke with us about his moments of his career, including seeing success in adoptions.
Doing adoptions, that's always a bright point. And for me, the first adoption that I did, it was tied into a case that I'd been prosecuting. Whenever you get ready for trial, you visit with the witnesses to make sure you understand where they're coming from. Well, that little girl had felt more comfortable with the foster family, that she revealed more.
In 1982, Mattson says he helped sponsor a constitutional amendment that put in more money for public education through the Common School Trust lands. He says he looks forward to his retirement by spending time with his wife and visiting presidential libraries.